had the amazing task of running the world, and you were in charge of inspiring change, what 3 people would you choose to work alongside you?
So I had kind of a long, hard think about this, and alongside kind of things that are important to me and in my own personal life, but also in my career. Somebody that's inspired a lot of change, and has also been, a really important person of the last 10 years for me, Barack Obama. I know it's cliche, and I know he probably gets mentioned a lot, but with the, I think the fact that he was so hamstrung by politics in his position as president stopped him from kind of taking forward as many of the initiatives that he had around bringing equality to, into the market for gender, and driving race initiatives as well.
Yeah.
But, his Healthcare Act was revolutionary. And the fact that he got that in such a tough political climate meant that he would be someone that I would definitely take along in that role with me. And then thinking more broadly, for me, other important things for changing the world in the future would be the climate,
yeah,
and kind of the climate debate, and the economy, but also kind of technology, given that it evolves so quickly year on year, and the fact that we have new technologies and new threats always coming up in different industries of the world. So in the environment space, Naomi Klein has been someone that I've read about a lot. She is a neoliberalist and kind of looks at environmental politics.
Yeah.
So she's done a lot of work on kind of thinking about how we merge capitalism against the climate. So, she's not arguing for a world where we don't have capitalism and we don't have that sort of society.
Yeah.
But it's how do we work alongside climate change and the important work that needs to happen both from a scientific angle, but also from an environmental angle. So she would be definitely somebody that I would take on board and kind of be there for that angle.
Yeah.
And then in the tech space, Demis Hassabis is somebody that I've followed quite a lot throughout my career. So he started a company called DeepMind, which has been bought by Google. And it's essentially an artificial intelligence company. And he's been quite instrumental in the development of AI and sort of how it impacts everyone's life, not just, the commercial sector and, products and platforms for different companies. He's looked at it from a social perspective, how it changes our life in a practical sense, whether it's, driverless cars or automation or, machine learning. And he's been actually a real inspiration for me in kind of looking at the ethics around artificial intelligence, but also he's kind of forward thinking. He's always thinking, 10 or 20 years down the line to kind of educate people on what's coming over the horizon. So he'd be someone I'd probably take along as well.
That's a good team. I think that works really well with the reality of the world. It's not really thinking, oh God, I want this, this, and this. I think it works well with what we have and how we can sort of develop that to work for everybody. So I like that one. I think that's good. And what would be, with your dream team, what would be the first thing that you would change about the industry?
Obviously, I'm very passionate about kind of balancing more women in leadership positions and increasing diversity in my industry. I fear, like with a lot of industries, actually, it's sorely underrepresented at the very senior levels, the influential levels of the industry. So something I'm very passionate about in sort of my work with women in tech and also work across the NHS would be to kind of facilitate that equality, to enable the industry to reach out to all parts of life, and including all diverse areas, whether it's ethnic minorities or women that are looking to get into this industry, and develop actual strategies and plans and implement those plans to kind of bring about more of a balance. I hate to say it, but like throughout all of my career, those leaders and cultures have always been very male, pale, and stale. And still in 2020, I don't see there being enough of drive to change that by any company that I've either worked for or been a part of. So Women in Tech really has been a fantastic organization to be a part of, and yeah, I'm happy to be part of that kind of global movement.
Yeah, I know that you work a lot with the NHS, and this is something you're quite passionate about. Obviously, at the minute, the NHS is a huge talking point with COVID. How did you actually get into working with them?
So I wanted to take on some non-executive director type role. You know, partly selfishly because I wanted to build on my own leadership skills and have more experience at board level, because that's something that I feel very ambitious for in my own career. But then thinking about the kind of areas that I wanted to affect change, I think our health system and also gender balance in our sector were the two key areas for me. So getting involved with Women in Tech was a natural point for me. And then through that, having conversations with a colleague who then introduced me to the trust in Manchester, which I'm a part of now, which kind of looks at specific illnesses like cancer and heart disease and all that sort of stuff, and kind of runs the trust based on funding in those areas. So looking to kind of it's been actually a really challenging time, obviously because of COVID and obviously because resources are stretched, but it's been really good being part of the discussion to look at how we maintain a focus on those areas where people are still suffering from cancer and still suffering from very significant and common illnesses, maintaining resources and research and development initiatives and funding for treating those cases. That's been a real challenge and something which has been very important, I feel.
Yeah. And do you think in the future it will become less of a challenge once sort of COVID hopefully isn't the main topic of our lives?
So I think there's always a cloud over the NHS in the sense that whether from a political perspective or an economic perspective, there's always been discussions about privatizing the NHS, which I feel is just the wrong step to take. I think we've kind of led the way with other countries like Canada, who have this healthcare system which is available for all. And you can just see the problems that it creates by privatizing it. If you look at the US, I mean, Barack Obama brought in that Healthcare Act to try and ensure that everyone had the rights to healthcare and, didn't suffer financially as a result of becoming ill. And I think protecting that is really key. So I see the future being a threat in the context of trying to monetize or privatize the NHS, and I think that has to be protected. But from a perspective of kind of research and development into all sorts of illnesses and conditions, and just to maintain the stability of the NHS, I think there's a lot of attention being paid to that and a lot of work going into it. And hopefully something like COVID, if anything good is to come of COVID, it should be that the people that have put their lives on the line to get us through this and to treat us with little or with very little pay, or change the way that they are paid. Hopefully that shines that light, and the government will do something about it and kind of balance the way that they're paid.
Yeah, I feel like it is a pivotal moment, because I think on one side, I think COVID has taught us that you're only really as healthy as the person next to you. It doesn't really matter if I've got private healthcare. If the person that's next to me doesn't, then you're both at risk anyway. But also I think it does obviously highlight the money that needs to go into it. And see, when throughout this interview series, whenever I speak about change, a lot of people kind of focus on the negative things that need to change. But is there anything that does excite you about the industry at the moment? Obviously, we're in a very difficult time and it's all kind of very pivotal, but what does actually bring about a little bit of excitement?
I think, as I said, about the kind of the people that I would take on board into kind of changing the world. I think the advancement of artificial intelligence, machine learning into my specific industries, within the banking industry and that sort of stuff. But more broadly into how we live our life is really exciting, because if you think about the ways that we engaged with tech in as recently as 2000 to now, whether you look at telephony, the way that we operate on the internet, social media, all that sort of stuff. It's a fantastic time. Like, it really has escalated over the last 20 years, year on year. It's almost exponentially increased in our, the amount of reach that we have, and different methods of connecting ourselves to people and to institutions. So
crazy.
I see that as being like the positive thing, is that it's only getting, increasingly focused in the areas of things like artificial intelligence and machine learning and automation. And that will obviously bring about its own unique set of threats, which we, as a, both as a community, but also as a professional services, need to respond to. But yeah, I'm kind of excited for things like, driverless cars, hybrid machines, artificial intelligence, machine learning that kind of makes your experience on the internet more bespoke, or and stuff that facilitates advancements in things like healthcare and climate change.
And do you think the industry is ready in terms of its infrastructure? Obviously there is still a skills gap, so maybe not in terms of the people, but do you think it is ready for that sort of quick change?
I think certain elements of the industry are ready. I think, in terms of the clients that I work with, I certainly see financial services being ahead of the curve in terms of embracing big tech and alternative forms of technology in order to kind of make their customer experience more diverse. So certain elements like that are ahead of the game. I think there are probably areas within defense, critical national infrastructure, utilities, that are probably a bit behind the curve and need to kind of take a hard look at the amount of investment they put into those areas if they're going to want to thrive in this kind of new world where I believe we, maybe won't be together face to face as much as we have been over the last year. They will have to sort of change their strategy and look at how technology can work for them. If they want their company to survive, but B, also if they want to continue providing the same level of services, whatever it might be, to their customer base.
Adapt that. And obviously we speak about how the industry's changed so much in a short space of time, but obviously people change as well. And when you were starting out in the industry, is there anything that now that you would give, a piece of advice that you would give yourself when you were just coming into the industry?
Yeah, I think confidence was a massive thing, because in the industry there are a lot of kind of smart and successful people, and I was the sort of person that was drawn to that and would kind of put myself into positions where it might be a difficult environment or a challenge. And I think if I was to speak to myself, I would say that I shouldn't worry too much about what other people think about me. Like, I should have just have the confidence to know what I want and to work hard for it. To not be sidetracked by if you have a difficult boss, or if you have a colleague that you can't get on with, or a client that's unreasonably rude to you or something like that. I think in the early parts of my career, there were points where that consumed me, and I kind of took it personally or became too emotional about it. But now I really see it for what it is that it's business. People obviously have their own agendas, and you just have to kind of not take it personally and move on. Just keep the eye on the prize in terms of what you want to achieve, and just stay true to that.
Yeah, definitely. And in previous interviews that I've done, a lot of people said similar things, and that when they were joining the industry, they felt like there was almost a bit of a snobbery around sort of who was more intelligent, who was more technical. So is that something that you sort of experienced as well then?
Yeah, maybe not so much on a personal level, but more
Yeah,
on kind of like an organizational level. So when I started in government, there was certainly this snobbery around which government departments were kind of, um, just a place where everyone wanted to work, and they
yeah,
kind of knew that, so it kind of fed through into their attitude and how their leaders acted.
yeah,
So yeah, so I don't see it more on a personal level. I kind of people obviously there is ego in every
yeah,
form of the professional world, and there are going to be different personalities, but I think on the whole it's more about kind of the organizational view of itself rather than individual people's view
yeah.
of themselves, and the impacts that might have on someone entering the job market.
Yeah, I guess it's a culture that's also sort of bred as well through those organizations. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I was just going to say, so I think
Yeah,
that tech firms have been fantastic in addressing that. So,
yeah,
places like Google, when I've had them as clients, their attitude towards their people, and yeah, while it's geared to kind of maximizing the amount of output they have whilst in the office, actually um, is more of a humanizing
yeah,
strategy towards their culture. So, the attitude towards kind of, people taking a nap if they're stressed, or, not starting every meeting going straight into business, but having a discussion, or like playing a game on a console. If having spaces where people can actually have a discussion,
yeah,
relaxing the dress code, all that sort of stuff. They're little things, but they go a long way for me, at least in
yeah,
terms of how I see the world evolving, and the fact that the millennial generation and the Gen Z generation aren't really part of some of the archaic cultures and
yeah,
forms we have in the job market.
yeah. This whole interview series is all around extraordinary people inspiring change. So
Mm.
to finish it off, I ask everybody this as well. Who is the most extraordinary person to have inspired change in your life?
I was thinking about this like long and hard, and I kind of obviously there are
Okay.
people that have inspired
Yeah,
a different perspective in my mindset, or have just generally
yeah,
been inspirational for me. But actually, it's a really personal question for me, and I feel as though if I think of who actually who has facilitated or inspired the most actual change in me, it's my daughters. My daughters have
yeah,
actually have single-handedly been the people that have changed who I am as a person in the last 10 years. So, um, my attitudes towards towards the future generations, whether from a climate perspective
yeah,
or a gender equality perspective, an economic perspective, opportunities, all that sort of stuff, like they're them being them, and them having those passions, and actually, just having the responsibility of growing a little mind, or seeing,
yeah.
or protecting them. Do you know what I mean? As well,
Mm,
protecting them from certain elements of society has changed my worldview. Has made me slightly more risk averse, made me more open minded, um, made me embrace something like women in tech. The only real
yeah,
reason, selfishly, why I started with women in tech was because I have daughters who I
yeah,
worry for in the future, that they may be unfairly admonished from a certain industry just because it doesn't
yeah,
have a good representation.
yeah.
So yeah, I would say it's my daughters that have inspired the most change in
That's nice.
my recent life. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important because obviously I think sometimes being completely selfish, you can just sort of think about things that affect you and will that affect you in the future? Maybe not. So it's not your priority. But I don't have children, but I can imagine once you do, you sort of start to think of the wider picture, the future for them, and you do want to inspire that change. So I really like that answer. I think
I
that's
think
very
it's natural. It's human to be selfish, to be sort of
yeah.
invested in what you need.
Mm,
Um, so it's nice to sort of be in a position where you either have like someone that depends on you,
yeah,
or kind of is looking for you to grow their mind, or to kind of be a mentor to
yeah,
them.
yeah,
I loved mentoring previously before I had kids. I loved supporting other people's
yeah,
passions, and then helping them with my own experiences grow through that. But actually having children, it's sort of takes it up a level and has actually made me more of a balanced person.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm sure if you ask them in 20 years' time who inspired change, they'd say you. So it's a nice little cycle.